everyone. Welcome to how the American healthcare system almost ended my life. I can actually tell a lot of stories like this. I have many journals full of stories like this, but this is kind of an overarching one of many stories rolled into one because it added up to a bunch of doctors not collaborating and each of them making their own mistake leading up to a big one that would affect my life forever. So let's get into the dramatic story. If you have medical PTSD though, like me, I highly recommend not watching this video because honestly, it's even triggering to just talk about for me. It stresses me out a lot. But I wanted to share this so you guys would feel less alone and know you're not the only one that the medical system has treated like trash. And it will continue to be this way unless we speak up about it. So I'm going to keep talking about it no matter how many people get annoyed. So, yeah, let's get into it. So, definitely do your own research when it comes to medications. That's the big overarching thing of this story. But yeah. Gabapentin, also known as Neurontin, is a prescription medication typically used to prevent seizures or to treat nerve pain. Gabapentin was described to me as an alternative to addictive pain medication. WebMD says the exact way the gabapentin works for nerve damage or seizures is unknown. Gabapentin may block certain signals from nerves. How honestly, it freaks me out that we don't know how it works and what if I need those signals. But, I was 16 when I was put on it, and I didn't research it because I foolishly trusted doctors because I thought they just want the best for you. So, of course, you should listen to them and not question them. But now I know, never ever trust a doctor. Always look up the medication first and the interactions of other meds because they don't flip and do that. Your pharmacy should do that, but your pharmacy might not do that because they assume your doctor does it. So, yeah. Always look up your medications. I cannot stress that enough. The way gabapentin works is you slowly have to build up a dosage. You start at 100 mg, move up weekly to your doctor's desired dose. I was put on the highest dose at 900 milligrams as a teenager, and they expected me to function in the school. I don't know what they were thinking, honestly. It's crazy that they expected me to work through this insane brain fog. The medication is known to make your brain go slower, and I already struggled a lot with going to school, and I have several learning disabilities like dyscalculia and dyslexia, and yeah, the medication is not going to help that. It's going to make those worse for me. I was put on gabapentin for nerve pain, specifically for chronic regional pain syndrome, other known as CRPS or RSD, or suicide disease, as it is known as one of the most painful conditions in the world. And a high percentage of people, end their life. I tried to as well. It's very common with this disease. So, yeah. That's really hard to say. Because, yeah, my condition almost got the best of me multiple times. And doctors really, yeah. Anyway, this condition is luckily rare, so don't stress out. I just have a higher percentage chance of getting it because I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. At the time, I wasn't diagnosed, though, so it was odd that I had CRPS and didn't know why I had it. It's a very rare thing, so my doctors were very confused. CRPS typically occurs after an injury, a surgery, or a stroke. You can luckily go into remission of CRPS if caught early. Unfortunately, mine was not caught early, and I was put in a deadly situation by many doctors who did not know what they were doing. They mixed medications that should not be mixed, did not tell me side effects to look out for, and did not think of my other conditions such as my gastroparesis and depression. The date of the original injury that started it all. I sang it for you so you'd feel special, you know? March 10th, 2019. I had twisted my ankle or something at a school competition wearing heels for my presentation. I frequently snapped and cracked my joints, and they would feel better. Someone really should have realized I had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but, that didn't happen till later. So, on the night of March 10th, I tried cracking my ankle so it would feel better, but instead it was replaced with the worst sharpshooting pain of my life. My mom would take me to our small hospital in the middle of nowhere the next day. The doctor said it was just a sprain, but the orthopedic surgeon was oddly in that day. And oh god, I wish he wasn't, because he would make a mistake that would change my life permanently. He said the previous doctor made a mistake. I had a shepherd's fracture and would need to be in a boot and wouldn't be able to walk on it for a month. They injected a cortisone shot into the joint to help with pain, and I would have to follow up in 2 weeks. The pain was indescribable and would only continue to get worse. I was missing an insane amount of school, leaving early, getting called a cripple daily, and having crutches yanked out from under me. So in the healing process, all things were going great. Not. The next week appointment, my pain was so much worse, I was given another cortisone shot by said doctor and another x-ray. It had not healed at all, he said. Give it a couple more months, but he thinks I am on a one-way track to surgery to remove the shard of the bone. My foot was stuck in a clawed position, and I could not move it myself. He taught my mom how to forcibly uncurl my foot to get it back into the boot. It was awful. My toes would make all these loud cracking, crunching noises because it was so tight, the tendons would snap off my toes, and it really, really hurt. Till this day, she still cringes every time my joint lets out an even tiny small crack or I crack my knuckles. She can't handle my cracking anymore after that. To be honest, I think it traumatized her as much as it did me. I was supposed to wait 3 months to check if I needed surgery, but the pain was too excruciating, I could no longer sleep. Every time my mom took my foot out of the boot, she would say something wrong, looked like my foot belonged to someone else. Like it belonged to a corpse or something, because it was so purple and cold. It had no life in it. My mom could not take seeing me cry and crawl my way up the stairs daily into our house anymore. So she took me to another hospital that was around 45 minutes away instead of our small middle-of-nowhere hospital. They would x-ray my foot and come back to tell me my foot was never broken at all. I had an os trigonum, and yeah, I didn't know what that meant either, but basically it's a congenital birth defect. Congenital meaning I was born with it. It occurs in 14% of normal feet, and it could even occur in more because it only causes a problem if it gets injured. It rarely ever causes a problem or really ever needs surgery. It's the last option after ice, rest, medication, and physical therapy. And I haven't even had physical therapy. Sorry if I'm getting a little angry here. It's just, this story really gets me angry and I either scream about it or I cry. Or I laugh awkwardly because I need to do something. I don't know. I always laugh at the worst moments. It's bad. I just did it again. Anyway, it should be fine after 4 to 6 weeks. He wanted me in this boot for 3 months. 3 months! The doctor that informed me that it was never broken said it probably started as a sprain. What the first doctor had said until the orthopedic surgeon said he was incorrect. So yeah. However, being in the boot for so long, immobilized, he thinks caused a nerve disorder and said I needed to see a neurologist as soon as possible. He had never seen a foot look so discolored. So, that was great. My life kind of just blew up at that moment. And so did my trust in basically the whole medical field. In Maine, we have a serious doctor shortage, And it's been going on for a long time, even before COVID-19. But surprisingly, I got into neurology really fast, which is actually not a good sign because if you can get into a doctor fast, it means something's really bad. One look and the doctor knew it was chronic regional pain syndrome, especially with the telltale sign of the freaking clawed foot that the other orthopedic surgeon saw and taught my mom to unclench it. It was surprising it didn't break my foot worse, because forcing a muscle open like that can do more damage. He said I needed to get into physical therapy immediately and get out of the boot as soon as possible. I ended up having to go to physical therapy 3 times a week on top of school. It really was a crazy time. I live it up. There was a positive side, though, to my physical therapist because he was absolutely the best. He was kind, very funny, and understood my dark humor. He said I had one of the most painful things you can get. I could swear at him all I like, which I never did, but he offered, which was the nice thing. However, it was a very, very long journey because I could not handle even a poke on my foot. We started by rubbing soft towels on my foot, but even those felt like fire. But my foot itself felt like ice. He actually warned us, though, not to refer to it as a corpse foot, even though that's what it looked like, because it sends the wrong message to my brain. My brain was already disconnected from it and felt like it was not mine. So the main goal was to remind my brain that that's my foot. So I could walk again. I did not help the process at all. One fact about me, I am the worst patient ever, and I will continue to be that way. I will not listen, especially after what I went through. I think I have that right. But anyway, that summer I was working and I walked miles a day on crutches. My physical therapist thought I was insane and didn't understand how I could possibly be doing that, especially with my pain. And he looked at my foot and he's like, I don't understand how you're doing that stuff. I don't understand actually now because I could not do that stuff today. I can't. I can walk again, but I could not walk miles. I was a different breed back then, I guess. The walking was making it worse because my foot was stuck in the claw position. I was making the tendon tighter and tighter by walking and tensing. So for a long time in physical therapy, I was just rubbing towels and lotion on my foot to try and desensitize it and remind it that it's a good thing because everything felt like burning. I still had to use the boot because I couldn't wear a shoe because I wasn't allowed to walk on it, and because of the tendon, I physically couldn't walk without falling over, and a shoe would feel like fire. I couldn't even put a sock on it. During this awful time period, several other things were happening. My old pediatrician retired, and I got a fresh new doctor who immediately looked at my flexibility and cracking joints and said, something is really wrong here, and sent in a referral to genetics. She thought I had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which I had never heard of, but would become well acquainted with it fast. My amazing physical therapist said he had never seen someone this flexible and compared my neck to an owl, and asked if I had Ehlers-Danlos. Tragically, at this time, my psychiatrist, the only person who prescribed my anxiety medications, passed away. And I was grieving a lot and stopped taking my medicine, which was actually really bad and worst time I could have stopped taking it, but I was also having gastroparesis flares and vomiting like crazy. So I just stopped taking my medicine. And I was going through a lot of friend stuff at that time, too. Yeah, it was not great. I could no longer hold down any of my medications, and my gastroenterologist thought I was crazy. So yeah, I was living it up in high school, you could say. Fun fact, in Maine, there are only one place for genetics, which is Portland, which would not see me because I did not have enough evidence. My pediatrician was livid as she had sent 52 different documents of why she thought I had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is actually really odd because that's my mom's favorite number, so I thought it was a sign or something. The only option we had left was going out of state, so my peds doctor sent me a referral to Boston Children's, and I actually got in, and it's the fastest I had ever been able to get into a doctor. So, really, one thing about Maine is that, you know, we do not have doctors that will see you or treat you like a human being, so if you're chronically ill, I feel like this is like the worst state to live in. I'm just gonna say that. It continues to be true to this day. I always get in there way faster. On October 18th, 2019, I got diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome at age 17. They even paid me for my spit. That was cool. Though the geneticist gagging at my hypermobility and saying ew was less than ideal. The tests were very hard due to the immobilized nerve damaged foot. She sent me a referral to pain clinic and gastroenterology because, fun fact, more so my mom made, by yelling at the gastro in Maine to do a gastric emptying study for gastroparesis because we had found out it was a comorbidity of Ehlers-Danlos after researching EDS. She reluctantly did the test but said there was no way I had it. But the test showed I had severe gastroparesis. She gave me a medication to make me gain weight, and then she never wanted to see me again. So, I had to find a new gastroenterologist. Fun, fun, fun. Physical therapy continued, but wasn't going anywhere until we tried swim therapy. Side note. Why did I say it like that? Side note. Anyway. I know I talk about my water allergy, but I actually developed that when I got COVID. So, yeah, I used to not be allergic to water. I actually used to love swimming, and it was my favorite exercise because every other exercise hurts. Now, I can't swim, and that sucks. Thanks to water therapy, though, in the past, it was the only reason I was able to walk again, and it was great. I held a pool noodle for balance and practiced walking like normal in the water, and it didn't hurt. We slowly transitioned to walking on land with crutches, then stairs, then even a stationary bike. That one was the hardest because of, the winding movement. It hurt, but, I was getting there. We got me to walk again, obviously. After over a year and a half, I was able to walk again with no crutches. My physical therapist was so proud. He said a lot of people don't come back from this. I was so happy to be able to walk again, but my foot was still so freezing, and it hurt, but I could walk, and that's what mattered to me. I put in the work, and I could walk. I still saw him for a long time after he taught me how to relocate my own joints so something like this wouldn't happen again, since people with Ehlers-Danlos are very prone to dislocations, and it almost happens daily. Fun, fun, fun. During this time I was seeing my new gastro in Boston, they kept me on my cyproheptadine that my previous doctor had put me on, and added erythromycin. Yes, the cyproheptadine was helping me gain weight for the first time ever in my life, but it was a serotonin blocker, and I was not on my antidepressants anymore, and I was extremely depressed, and the medication was definitely playing a part in that. Luckily, things were going better, though. At least I could walk, and I was going to start my senior year off right. Well, a little bit into it. I was still on crutches in the beginning of senior year, and I went to our version of prom, which is snowball, and knocked over the curtain with my crutches, the curtain that the queen and king come out of, so, yeah. But I could start the middle of my senior year off right, am I right? And then something happened that nobody expected. Even when I was used to all these crazy things happening to me. COVID-19, the pandemic, shut down the entire world. That happened to everybody, and it was crazy. And I was really at risk because nobody knew what was going on with me, and there was a chance it could kill me if I got COVID. So that was terrifying. So, yeah. I was seeing all my doctors virtually, which is actually very terrible, but it was the only option I had. I met my pain clinic doctor for the first time virtually. She was very sexist. She told me all my pain was hormonal and I should be on birth control. And she put me on gabapentin. Told me it was non addictive. It did not tell me a single side effect. Really, this is a life story about how each of my doctors fail me because they don't work together. Unless we are talking about my physical therapist. He is the GOAT, and I cannot say a single bad word about him. He even let me bring my friends to yell at me while I worked out and learned how to walk again. He was the bomb, not gonna lie. But every other doctor failed me, okay? We're not talking about the GOAT. I was slowly upping my gabapentin at home mid-pandemic, working on my senior project. To be honest, I was really happy during COVID because I didn't get bullied daily and got tons of Applebee's from my mom who worked to go for people, and they would forget to constantly pick up their orders, or DoorDash would never show up and didn't want it anymore. So I got Applebee's a lot. I was excited to go to Massachusetts College of Art and be out of Maine in the fall. However, the pandemic raged on, and mass art would be all online. So I took a gap year because I was going to be an animation major. I didn't want to do art virtually. As a disabled person, I joined vocational rehab to help me find a job in the meantime. Vocational rehab is for disabled people who can work, and it helps them find a job. So yeah. We spent forever trying to find online jobs because getting COVID would be really, really bad for me. I could not get a single job until the summer of 2021. I worked at a small, sketchy hotel that had almost 5 pages of names I had to memorize that were banned from being there due to crimes. So yeah. My anxiety and depression were at an all-time high. I was already not good with phone calls, and now I had people yelling at me constantly because I was the receptionist. I couldn't use the bathroom because I was so nervous to miss a call. One thing about my gastroparesis, well, this not about my gastroparesis, everyone's gastroparesis. You can manage it with medication, but it gets really bad with stress, and there's no way to stop the flare unless you calm down. And yeah, I was not calming down while working, and the medication was not working because I couldn't hold it down. I would later find out in 2022 that it was because I'm autistic. I did not ever know that at the time, so I tried to push through. But pushing through the anxiety does not work when you're autistic because you will eventually have a meltdown or shut down. And it's not good. You stop taking care of yourself and it gets really bad. So yeah, anxiety medication doesn't work when you're autistic, so yeah, and I wasn't even holding it down at that point, so from all areas, I was pretty screwed. The thing about not holding down any medication, I was not holding down my gabapentin. And as you were told before, and what I was told before, is that gabapentin is not addicting, which I guess it isn't, but you can still go through withdrawals. So make that make sense. I don't know. I entered gabapentin withdrawals, which nobody told me was a freaking thing. I stayed awake for 3 days, sometimes not leaving the bathroom, and sometimes would pass out on the floor for 30 minutes at the time. I lost an insane amount of weight. My mom felt like she was watching me wither away. She forced me out of the bathroom into my bed. When I left my bed to go back to the bathroom, she took all my blankets and sheets to wash them and said I couldn't go back to bed until I showered because I reeked of vomit. Because I had stayed awake for days, vomiting for days. It was going really downhill. I was sweating. There's nothing that you can really do to describe withdrawals. They are crazy and you feel like you're going to die, and you actually can die from withdrawals. That's why they have rehab centers, so you can go for withdrawals safely with doctors watching you at all times. I was not doing that because I did not know what was happening. My mom had never seen me like this, and I was always sick as a kid, but there's nothing that could describe this. She tried to make me anything: jello, applesauce, a smushed banana, ice cream. I was refusing to eat. I tried to make her happy by eating something, but nothing would stay down. And she was really scared. And I think I stopped being scared and I was just accepting it. That it felt like the end. I ended up showering just so she'd make me stop eating food. And she sat in the bathroom with me the whole time to make sure I didn't faint. I felt like a ghost. She brushed my hair and braided it. She basically carried me to the car because I hadn't slept in so long, had no food, and I thought it was them. And I just wanted to be at home. I didn't want to go to the hospital. I I really thought this was the end. She dragged me into the hospital, the small one that messed up my foot so bad that I was on gabapentin for the reason I was in withdrawal. It's strange how life comes full circle like that. The hospital that ruins you is the one to treat you again. I don't know if it's ironic in a funny way or just ironic in a sad way. Nurses rushed out and got me a wheelchair and isolated me until I could get a COVID test because it was 2021 and it was still really bad during that time. The test came back negative. My mom did all the talking. It's really hard to remember. I was slurring my words. I was so malnourished and sleep deprived. They took my blood, something about ketones. I don't know what was going on. My stomach was eating itself because it was so malnourished. It had no food. It was eating the fat itself. They tried every anti-nausea med in the book, and I was still throwing up. Nothing stopped vomiting, so they tried to fix this not sleeping and gave me an antipsychotic called Haldol. It knocked me out for hours. My mom called Boston Children's. They said to bring me there. She drove me there the next day. I spent the whole 4-hour car ride vomiting. Even though my gastro told me to come to Boston Children's, I sat in the waiting room for an hour, shaking, sweating, and vomiting. When they did not get me in for some reason, I vividly remember watching Gordon Ramsay stopping shark poaching. I don't know what that's why I remember, because my memories are so jumbled from that point. I vividly remember watching Gordon Ramsay. I don't know. I was like the one positive. I have no idea. I guess Gordon Ramsay was the light in my tunnel of dying. Time moves so slow, but also fast, like I was speeding towards a dark hole. They gave me sugar water IV to stop my stomach from eating itself. A gastro specialist I never met was very interested in my case. He wanted to do a G-poem surgery. I think he tried to explain it, but I really wasn't there or in the right headspace. My mom said something and he left. I don't know. I don't know why a doctor was like so interested in my case while I'm flat out dying. He's like, ooh, I know a surgery. I don't know. Doctors get so impressed by me. They're like, ooh, unfortunately, but they can't fix me, but I'm so interesting. I kind of hate doctors, if you can't tell from this freaking story. Then a nurse gave me saltines and jello. I ate as suggested, then spent hours vomiting and vomiting. When the nurse came back in my room, my mom lost it. I don't think I have ever seen her that angry in my life. She was screaming how we had been there since 12 p.m. and it was now midnight. A doctor hadn't been in hours. My IV had been beeping for several hours as well. Apparently they forgot about me and I was admitted to Boston Children's at midnight, July 21st, 2021. I stayed there for 3 days and was not allowed to eat because they were going to do a procedure but didn't know when my doctor would be available. I was kept on constant IV and slept. Still did not come easily though, because nurses checked on me hourly. The shakes did not stop. I was getting back on my med schedule, though, for the IV. I was on fall risk. They wouldn't even let me go to the bathroom by myself at that time. I didn't really care because I had not peed in days. Because I was so freaking dehydrated. They were actually really concerned how I was not peeing with how much IV they gave me. So I also wasn't allowed to leave until I peed. That was fun. I was living in a permanent state of dissociation. They took me to the procedure at 7 p.m., and it was a Botox injection via gastroscopy, however you say it, into the valve between your stomach and small intestine, other known as the pyloric sphincter, which is the connection between your stomach and your intestine. The Botox is like a muscle relaxer, but directly into the source. It did not go as planned, though. I vomited while under anesthesia and asphyxiated. I had to be intubated. I don't remember the tube at all or it coming out. My mom says it was horrifying. When I was at baseline again, I was like, I wish you took a picture because I'm crazy. And she's like, I wish I didn't have to see it. So, my bad. She does say, though, I was fighting with the nurses hard because they took my water away because I was completely missing my mouth or choking after being detubed, if that's the correct wordage. After my procedure, I finally was able to sleep until my flipping IV broke and started being impossible. And sleeping withdrawals was impossible. So, Though the withdrawals were improving because they got me back on my meds. That morning, I was able to hold down toast and scrambled eggs, the first time I was able to eat in a week. Then I was discharged like nothing ever happened, like this series of events would not affect my life forever. To recap, I was misdiagnosed, wrongly treated, developed a nerve damage disorder due to a wrong diagnosis, spent over a year relearning how to walk, put on medication that I was told was non-addictive, not told the side effects. My doctors did not communicate, put me on medications that interact negatively with my illness, plus other meds I was on. Put on cyproheptadine that blocks serotonin when I was known to have major depression. My doctors missed that I was autistic because I'm a woman. My illness progressed due to no coping mechanisms for autism. Faced gabapentin withdrawals at age 19, not knowing I was going through withdrawals. Given an antipsychotic to knock me out. And finally was forgotten in a room at Boston Children's. Moral of the story, don't trust a single doctor. They're humans, they make mistakes, and don't communicate with your other doctors. In the end, you're just another patient to them, or another paycheck to them. To you, this is your life, and it's the only one you have. So, do your research. Don't trust the doctors, do your own research. Stay safe. And most importantly, guys, stay weird. Don't let anyone take that from you either. It was bitchin', but tomorrow I'll shoot drugs up in my kitchen.